joined now by Auburn beat reporter Tom Green. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to do a little NFL draft recap. Of course, we talked after day one of the draft, after Thursday night, and Derek Brown and Noah Igbenogany, the two Auburn guys, going off the board first in the first round. And then day two and day three and so on and so forth obviously brought a lot of additional guys, kind of a record class for the Auburn draft guys, 6 total being drafted. And we'll start first and foremost with Marlon Davidson, who goes to Atlanta, number 47 overall. Just your overall thoughts on that landing spot for him.
Oh, I think it's a great landing spot for him. Obviously, he's not far from home. He's from the Montgomery, Greenville area, so he'll be staying close. I think it's kind of a fitting selection for him, going 47th overall. In high school, his senior year, he changed his number to 47 after his mom passed away at the age of 47. So kind of nice little symmetry there for him, for things to come full circle, while, kind of fulfilling that promise he made to her that he was going to make it to the NFL and, provide for the family that way. So I think it's a really good fit for him. I'm really happy for him because he's just been a pleasure to cover these last 4 years. A real gregarious guy and hell of a player that the Falcons are getting there, a guy that they can play both, inside a defensive tackle or put out on the edge if they want to help with their pass rush there. So really, really good landing spot for him.
Yeah, I love that story with his mom and the number 47. I think that is maybe a little wink from her, obviously, as he fulfilled that promise. And, as we've talked about, he was highlighted in our Road to the Pros series. The 4th part of that series will be coming out soon. Big shout out to Wes Siner for producing that. Just a tremendous story. So, be sure to tune in. And Marlon Davidson, one that you and I talked about this before, he's certainly going to be one of the guys that we miss as Auburn reporters, getting to go out and cover him day in and day out, and obviously getting to talk to him, on campus and whatnot throughout the season. And so wishing him all the best, certainly. And of course, some other big storylines coming out of the draft in day 2 and 3. Of course, like I said, we had a total of 6 guys. So 4 additional guys went in the 2nd and 3rd rounds. And perhaps, a surprising one, or one that, was interesting. The first guy on day 3 was Jack Driscoll. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Jack Driscoll went there late in the 4th round to the Eagles. I think it's a pretty good opportunity for him. Most people projected him as a 4th, 5th rounder. So kind of right there in the middle, they're going at the end of the 4th round. But a good opportunity for him. Again, he's a guy that's just versatile and can play all 5 positions across the line. Probably start as a backup, but within a year or two, he'll probably get his opportunity to develop into a starting caliber offensive lineman, whether it's at tackle or guard at the next level.
And of course, joining him was Prince Tega Wanongo, a round 6 pick, and I guess somewhat of a surprise. Prince Tega was one of the guys invited to the virtual draft, and so maybe the thought was he might potentially go a little higher than maybe anticipated. I guess we had kind of talked about it before, maybe a 3rd round guy. Ends up going in the 6th round. Give us your thoughts on that and maybe why he sort of tumbled down to a later round.
Yeah, I mean, every projection leading up to the draft really had him as a 3rd, 4th rounder, most of them leaning toward a 3rd rounder. But I think he's one of these guys that was just really impacted by this whole pandemic. You look back to January when he was at the Senior Bowl and he was flagged because of swelling in his knee that he was dealing with throughout his senior season. Had to get that scoped, so he didn't participate in workouts at the combine. Didn't participate at Auburn's pro day, and he had his own personal pro day scheduled for a couple weeks before the draft. But because of the shutdown, NFL teams not being able to travel, he had to cancel that himself. So I think he's one of these guys that was just really impacted by teams not being able to, have their own doctors check out his knee and give him the okay. So I think that kind of hurt his stock, resulted in him falling there to day 3. But I think that's an incredible value pick there for the Philadelphia Eagles.
And I think it's interesting you kind of point that out, because I do feel like there were some guys that benefited from the pandemic in some ways and maybe not being poked and prodded as much as they could have been or would have been in that situation. But certainly he was kind of on the other receiving end of that, somewhat in a negative way. But, certainly I know it was a long wait for him. I know a grueling wait for him, but I know that he's obviously thankful and excited for the opportunity, to join Driscoll there in Philly and has a good opportunity. Now, going back to round 5, Daniel Thomas, he's somebody that kind of stands out as well.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Thomas is such a great story. When you look at him, he coming out of Montgomery, very low-rated prospect coming out of high school. Uh, you know, didn't even have an offer from Auburn until the morning of signing day back in 2016, after Auburn missed out on Nigel Warrior, who committed to Tennessee. So Auburn kind of swooped in there at the 11th hour, offered him, took him away from Minnesota, where he was planning to go as his fallback plan there. Freshman year, makes his way into the rotation. Bursts onto the scene in that Iron Bowl where he picked off Jalen Hurts 2 times in a losing effort. Then becomes a multi-year starter in the secondary for Auburn. Real hard-hitting prospect, good against the run. To see him go from the lowest-rated player in Auburn's 2016 class to an NFL draftee is just a really impressive story for a great kid.
Yeah, and really an overall impressive day for Auburn, I guess you'd say, multiple days. And of course, later on, you'll be talking to Gus Malzahn to kind of go over some of the draft class and how things shaped up. But I know, certainly an exciting time for those guys. And then on top of the 6 that were drafted, you've got 8 guys that have already signed with teams in free agency. Of those 8 guys, won't be a long, lengthy list, but of those 8 guys, who kind of stands out to you the most?
Well, I think the first one that really, happened right after the draft was the Patriots signing Will Hastings. Everybody's kind of joked for a few years now that Will Hastings was inevitably going to be a Patriot one day. Just that undersized receiver that they kind of built a reputation of developing, and it kind of makes sense. Especially if Jared Stidham is going to be their starting quarterback next year. Will Hastings was one of his favorite targets in the 2017 season. So to see them reunite, maybe there's something there for him. Maybe he can carve out a niche for himself as a shifty little slot receiver. So we'll see what happens with him. He wasn't even the only former Auburn player that the Patriots picked up. They also picked up Nick Coe,
Right.
who went undrafted. Nick Coe's such an interesting story there, because you go back to about this time last year, there was a lot of buzz about him possibly being a first-round draft pick, just because of the production he had in 2018 as Auburn's best pass rusher. Then he struggled both on and off the field this past season. His playing time kind of fell off. Didn't really know what his role was because they kind of moved him around, and that made him uncomfortable. Declared early this season, after this season, and left the team. So to see him go undrafted was, a little bit of a surprise, but that just seems like another, very Bill Belichick type move to try to, get a reclamation project in a guy who has high upside like Nick Coe.
First of all, I've got to comment on how locked in you are, because you got the pup back there whining behind you, and if it were me, I'd be like, I don't know what to say. This is crazy.
Yeah, she's whining for attention right now. She hates when I'm on calls for work.
Aw. Well, what's her name?
Sky.
It's okay, Sky. We're almost done. We are almost done. All right, before I let you go real quick, I just want to ask you, 2021, look, it's really not that far off if you think about it. Now, obviously, we're all hoping college football happens and we can get back to some level of normal, as are a lot of the 2021 draft prospects. A handful of guys that, aside from your seniors, you've got a couple of, guys that will be draft eligible next year that could potentially declare early. Give us a little rundown of that and your overall thoughts.
Yeah, I think there's a few names to kind of keep an eye on as, potential underclassmen who declare. I think Seth Williams, number 1 wide receiver again this year. We'll see how much his game takes a step up as Bo Nix improves. A couple other guys in the secondary there. You got Roger McCreary, who's going to be the number 1 back, taking over for Noah Benogany. And then Jamian Sherwood at safety. He's going to be stepping into, a starting role this season after being, one of the best freshman safeties in America 2 years ago. Has just been a real consistent role player for Auburn back there these last 2 years. And he's a guy that just so many people around that program think of highly. Noah Benogany said at the NFL Combine that he fully expected Jamian Sherwood to be there on that stage this time next year. So I think those are 3 guys to really keep an eye on.
Awesome stuff, Tom. We appreciate it. Again, Gus Malzahn will kind of weigh in on the 2020 NFL draft for those Auburn guys. And of course, we appreciate your insight. We'll check out your post on AL.com. And of course, guys, don't forget Road to the Pros with Marlon Davidson. we'll put a nice, pretty bow on it in the fourth and final episode. Of course, you can find those episodes on AL.com as well as our YouTube and Facebook channels. Such great stuff, such great insight. We appreciate you, Tom, Sky. We appreciate you too, back there wagging your tail. Love you, lady. Again, thank you so much, and we'll check in with you soon.
All right, thanks for having me, guys.